Each year, nearly 700,000 Americans die from heart disease. To raise heart health awareness throughout our communities, February is observed as American Heart Month. This year, the Great Lakes chapter of the Links Incorporated is excited to partner with McLaren Healthcare and the American Heart Association to share heart health messages through a series of webinars called HeartTalk Detroit. Founded in 1946, the Links Incorporated is an international not-for-profit volunteer service organization with 292 chapters throughout the United States, Germany, the Bahamas, and South Africa. One of the oldest and largest volunteer service organizations, its members document more than 1 million service hours annually. The organization's vision is to enrich communities and improve the quality of life for people of African descent through friendship and service. This objective is accomplished through mentorship, philanthropy, and using the diverse skill sets of the Link's prominent members. The Great Lakes chapter is the 252nd chapter chartered by the Links Incorporated and the 5th Links chapter in Metro Detroit. The chapter's development began in 1988 when its founder, Dr. Ella Mae Stapleton, brought together a group of women interested in improving and developing communities. From that meeting, a special interest group, ultimately known as the Metropolitan Area Service Organization, was established. Motivated by a desire to enhance lives, the group assisted organizations that were focused on the arts, health, national, and international endeavors, primarily focusing on issues affecting minorities. After demonstrating a community impact, the years of dedication and philanthropy paid off, and the Great Lakes chapter of the Links Incorporated was chartered during the weekend of January 29th, 1993. Now, more than 25 years later, the Great Lakes chapter has become deeply engaged in metropolitan Detroit community efforts. Our members have performed thousands of volunteer service hours for many community-based initiatives, such as Matrix Human Services, the Ronald McDonald House, the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History, and the United Negro College Fund. The generosity of chapter members, as well as sponsorships received from a variety of industries and entities, enable the Great Lakes chapter to provide charitable support for a wide range of worthy causes. Health initiatives, including heart health, have always been a focus of the chapter's efforts. In addition to supporting the American Heart Association's annual Go Red Luncheon, the Great Lakes chapter supported American Heart Month by hosting Heart Links, a vision for Michigan, in 2013. This initiative included community health fairs and the chapter's first Red Dress, Red Heart Luncheon at the Shenandoah Country Club in West Bloomfield. Since then, the Great Lakes chapter has hosted two additional Red Dress luncheons. The second on February 24th, 2018, at the Farmington Hills Manor, and the third community affair on February 29th, 2020, at the beautiful Fellowship Chapel Banquet Hall in Detroit, Michigan. With so many in our community suffering from heart disease, the Great Lakes chapter will continue to develop programming and partnerships that provide heart health education as part of the Links Incorporated National Heart Links Initiative. Learn more about the Great Lakes chapter of the Links Incorporated by visiting greatlateslinks.org.
Hi, my name is Christian Hurley, and I'm the Executive Director of the American Heart Association of Southeastern Michigan. I'd like to thank McLaren Macomb and the Great Lakes Michigan chapter of the Links Incorporated for hosting this dynamic and informative event. As you saw from the video, heart disease affects us all. As the number one killer of all Americans, all of us have in some way been impacted by heart disease or stroke. Today, we are putting a spotlight on heart health in the African American community, an issue of critical importance, particularly today when COVID-19 has unmasked the inequities in health in our communities. We've seen firsthand how the zip code in which you live has in many ways been more important than your genetic code. Where you live can often indicate your level of access to high quality health care, healthy food, affordable housing, transportation, and even sometimes your economic mobility. The American Heart Association is working today to remove barriers to health and to achieve health equity. We plan to invest more than $230 million between now and 2024 to go beyond words and take bold actions. A few of those bold actions include launching in partnership with the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, a $121 million nationwide hypertension initiative. This work will help to address a main source of poor cardiovascular health in Black, Hispanic, and Indigenous communities. Additionally, we are investing $100 million in new scientific research programs and grants focused on evidence-based solutions to health inequities and structural racism. The association also will expand diversity research opportunities for underrepresented racial and ethnic groups in science and medicine through grant funding, STEM programs, and our established historically Black colleges and universities, as well as the AHA's own Empowered to Serve Scholars Initiative, which provides scholarships for students attending HBCUs. Locally in Detroit, our community impact team is working with faith community leaders to provide technical support and resources to build the capacity to begin developing abandoned and blighted properties in Detroit with the long-term goal of establishing new sources of affordable housing. With the Social Impact Fund in Detroit kicking off, we're investing millions into social entrepreneurs who have developed innovative solutions for removing barriers to health due to the social determinants of health. Beyond these investments, programs, and initiatives, today, if you remember only one thing I've shared, please remember this: one is too many. Cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer of women, and too many women, particularly our youngest, most diverse women, remain unaware. The price of cardiovascular disease is high, and 1 in 3 women will pay that price with their life. When women come together, there is nothing we can't achieve. It's time for us to take action. Losing even one woman is simply not an option. Join us by coming to the Go Red for Women Luncheon digital experience on February 26th at 12 noon. This free event will provide an opportunity for you to learn more and to support our efforts to tell the world that one is too many, and we are taking a stand against heart attack and stroke. Please register today by visiting our website, www.heart.org/Detroit Go Red. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Excited to be here today with you. My name is Clarence Civilian, and excited for a variety of reasons. This is HeartTalk Detroit, specifically to talk about heart health in the African American community. Extremely important topic, something that I'm personally have a vested interest in. But this is the first part of our 3-part series to talk about what it is that we need to be doing, not only as individuals, but types of things that we can be doing in our communities. I would share with you that there's a lot of emphasis, a lot of reactive things that we're doing, but how can we be more proactive? How can we look at wellness and take it to not only just from an educational standpoint, but things that we can take back to our households, things that are going to truly have an impact for us, not only today, but into the future. All of us, many of us have been truly affected by heart health disease. And I would tell you with the challenges that we have today, it's something that certainly needs to be on our radar. So what we're hoping to do through this 3-part series is just to educate, share our knowledge, share different things that can be helpful and beneficial to you as individuals and to your family. So don't be afraid to share. I would tell you that I work for McLaren Healthcare Corporation, and we're committed to heart health, period. We have 14 hospitals throughout the state of Michigan in cities like Flint, Mount Clemens, Pontiac, and Detroit. And I would tell you that we're committed to having equitable access to healthcare in general, but specifically for heart health disease. And so when you talk about some of the things that are extremely important to us, having access and you being educated and having you educating those that are around you of how to have proper access and asking the right questions. These are all things that are extremely important to us as individuals and to our communities. And so what we're hoping for you to do today is to sit back, relax, listen, enjoy. And I would just share with you that we have some exciting topics over the next 3 weeks, and hopefully you can participate in all of the 3 sessions. So without further ado, what I'm hoping to do today is introduce someone that's very dynamic and that you'll be excited to hear from today, and that is Miss Marlon G. Williams. And a little bit about Ms. Williams is that she's the Vice President of Global Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for StockX. In her role, Ms. Williams is responsible for defining and building a corporate culture that values diversity and inclusion of backgrounds, talent, experiences, and ideas across the global organization. Alongside StockX's CEO, Scott Cutler, Williams spearheads equity and cross-cultural competency to advance the organization's mission and business objectives. She also serves as a diversity, equity, and inclusion advisor to StockX's executive level management. Her priorities for the next 12 to 18 months are equal parts instilling the business case and strategy for DEI organization-wide, fostering a diverse and inclusive organizational culture, and the recruitment and retention of diverse talent. Ms. Williams' goal is to serve as the main liaison between StockX and key local and national advocacy organizations. Personally, she will be satisfied when all StockX team members work in an environment where they feel valued and respected. Williams' name was named to her position in 2020, having previously served as Chief Diversity Officer, Chief Program Officer, Deputy Chief Information Officer, Tech Entrepreneur, and Associate VP of Economic Development. Mrs. Williams' prior career successes as an Assistant Vice President for Economic Development at Wayne State University. Ms. Williams architected the first suite of inclusive tech entrepreneurship programs running from ideation to funding and collaboration with TechTown Detroit. As Deputy CIO for the City of Detroit, Ms. Williams led the collaboration of 10 unique agencies to execute a flawless execution of technology and infrastructure for our Super Bowl. As founder of Sisters Code, Ms. Williams created the movement of awakening the mature geek by empowering women ages 25 to 85 to learn to code. In addition to leading diversity, equity, and inclusion functions, Ms. Williams shaped the first DEI initiative in its 30-year history, placing the CompuWare Corporation on one of the best places to work list. A graduate of Wayne State University, Ms. Williams also holds certificate in organizational development and employee relations law from the Institute of Applied Management. Without further ado, Ms. Marlon Williams.
Woo, thank you. That was a lot. I sent the bio and said, cut it down, but thank you. I appreciate that, Clarence. I really appreciate you. I appreciate you all welcoming our organization to partner with you on this very, very, very important topic. And we're going to get started. But I will tell you, so this is the way I roll. And we spoke with the panelists earlier, and we all agreed that we want you to sit back. We do want you to relax. This can be a really heavy topic. I'm sure it's touched some of you personally, but today we want to give you the answers and meet you where you are. So we're just asking, like, act as if we are at home. We're sitting around a table. We're in the living room. We are just having a good old conversation. And these panelists are so dynamic. And although I am the moderator, I am here to learn just as you all are. You know, when I was listening, doing some research earlier, I was like, wow, you know, I'm a caretaker for my mom right now. These are some things I need to know. And luckily my poor child is still alive, because when she was growing up, I just I didn't cook. I did different things. So I am looking for tips and tools as well today. So welcome once again to Heart Talk Detroit, a heart health conversation with the African American community. And before we get into the purpose of this event, I believe that we have a poll that is going to come up. We just wanted to get some information today. Just make sure that I am on topic here and doing the right thing. Yes. So if you could please, we have almost 200 people here. If you can answer this poll, I'm going to give you about 60 seconds to do so. And then we will get right back into the program. Okay, we're hoping that you can still continue to answer that poll question, but we definitely want to get to the matter at hand. So just to talk a little bit about the purpose of this event. Like I said, for some, this is totally personal. I know for me it is. And this is a series of, this is a 3-part series, but today we're focusing on the heart health in Metro Detroit's African American community. You already know who the hosts are, but when it comes to heart health and lifestyle, many African Americans have a shared history that may have an impact for generations. I know if you grew up like me, it was not a meal if there was not meat on that plate. Like, where's the starch? Where's the bread? Where's the thing? It was not a meal. But back in the day, I believe we did have more opportunity, or our parents got us out to play and to exercise and to do some different things. In the world of technology, things have changed a lot. So we do know that there are health challenges that we have to navigate a little differently. We do know that there are some disparities as it relates to healthcare, as it relates to healthy food, as it relates to, like someone said earlier, access to the things that we need. So today, although our panelists, it's the Divine Nine. So this is my tribe of people. And each of them will tell you that in their individual groups, they are already talking about this. They are already out in the community doing things that are going to educate us and get us to a better place. So today, that's why it's so special, because they took their time away from their organizations to share their knowledge with everyone. And we definitely do appreciate that. So we have a really fun video, I hear, that we're going to introduce. And this is a video of your panelists. They were put on a hot seat answering some questions. So I will be right back after this video. Maybe an Emmy Award winning video, huh? We'll see.
Did my relatives engage, or my mother and father engage in recreational activities or exercise? The answer is no. In fact, most of my relatives, adult relatives, worked in labor-intensive jobs. So whatever exercise they got it on the job.
I can't recall specifically individuals doing 30 to 60 minutes a day of physical activity. But on the other hand, to be fair, I didn't see them being sedentary either. So I did not grow up with seeing a regimented physical activity, treadmill, running. However, my family was very physically active, just in terms of the careers that they had and the different things that they did around the home, gardening and that kind of thing, to where they stayed active.
Not from a formal sense. My father ran track in high school. So as an adult, he would take us out and get us active, because in my generation, no one wanted to stay in the house. So everything that we did took place outside. So there were a lot of events where we played at the park. We pretty much lived at Belle Out on the weekend.
Favorite foods, of course, soul food was predominantly the meals that were made in my home. Fried chicken was my and still is my kryptonite. my mom, I remember a story where my mom at one point tried to introduce being vegetarian to us. So she made some yams, she made some greens. And my sister and I both said, well, Mom, where's the meat? So my mom was probably one of the more health conscious, but I think we had adapted to certain lifestyles and things that we liked. So we kind of fought it somewhat.
My parents in general did not engage in much physical activity, but we did do a lot of outdoor activities as far as walking, going ice skating, riding our bikes at Belle Isle. So I think that was encouraging as far as staying active and making it a family activity to stay engaged with physical activity.
When I was a kid, both of my parents engaged in physical activity. My dad actually is still pretty active as a basketball player. He also played in baseball leagues. And my mom loved to dance. She also preferred to exercise with her friends. And so a lot of times we would go to the park so she could walk with them. And she also, I remember her doing workout videos like Jane Fonda with her friends.
So I'm going to describe some of the meals that we had when I was growing up. In the morning, we had hot meals. We had grits, we had eggs, we had bacon and toast. We had to have a full hot meal. A lot of times when my family would come from down south, I had an aunt who made fried chicken. We had fried chicken, rice. We would have dinner almost for breakfast.
Probably the best thing is actually sugar cereal. So, I was one of those kids, woke up and ate a giant bowl of cereal every morning. And, my parents were pretty good at preparing, or mom was, at eggs, bacon, and sausages and things like that. But I was a sugar cereal kid all day.
When growing up, some of the foods that my mother prepared for me were like for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, there was always a hot meal. My mother always prepared it. She was very finicky with the way we ate. We didn't eat pork. We didn't eat a lot of beef. However, she always made sure that, like, for breakfast, I always had oatmeal in the morning, or cold cereal, rather. It was, my favorite was Frosted Flakes or Dig 'em Smacks.
I would have to say I had a well-balanced diet. Luckily for me, I grew up in a family that half of us were vegetarians, well, half of them were Seventh-day Adventists. So as we would have meals, our family would prepare vegetarian and meat dishes. So we grew up accustomed to vegetarian meatless options, as well as your traditional meat kind of meals. And I remember specifically, usually around the holidays is when the fights would break out, because the cooks in our family would season the food so good, you wouldn't know what was meatless or what was vegetarian. And as the meat options started to dwindle, we would gladly dig our spoon into the vegetarian options. But that really embedded in all of us. So as we grew up, we kind of grew accustomed to doing some different meatless options, having a lot of vegetables kind of in our diet. With the way it was seasoned, we were happy with either way.
My favorite foods, surprisingly, was steak with my father and Dot and Etta shrimp. We did not have a lot of fast foods. That was a treat. When I was growing up, if my father picked up McDonald's maybe once a month, and it was a big surprise and a big celebration, unlike what occurs now in a lot of households. My mother always cooked.
We had a garden out back. The majority of our green vegetables came out of that garden. So there was very few fresh foods that we bought from the outside, because my mother prepared it right outside in the yard, except for outside during the winter months when it got cold. But even then, she still had things that she had cleaned and stored and put in the freezer. So we pretty much had a Southern diet. I mean, there were a lot of fried foods. You had your greens, which was constant in my house, but most of them was always made with fat back.
Outdoor activities as a kid, what did I do? Man, I was a sports kid. So I was one of those kids, I was outside from sun up to sundown, basketball, baseball, and football. And, it's a little different now with kids, but, I come from the generation where you had to be home before the streetlights came on, right? And even then, parents had to come looking for you.
Some of the activities that I engaged in outside, running bases, hit the cap, where you would bounce the ball on the cap, dodgeball. We always made up something. We would take a chair and sit in it and push it and would sing North to Alaska. We did a lot of imaginary things that, we engaged in fun. We played in the street. We were able to play in the street. We had the neighbors that made sure that we were safe. If we were in the street and they saw a car coming, we had to get out. But we had to maximize the area of what we did because we didn't have playgrounds. We just had the sidewalks and the streets, but we did a lot of activities outside.
As a child, I participated in several outdoor activities. As a young child, I remember hopscotch and jump rope and hula hooping. And then as I got older, I played organized basketball. So when we were outside, there was a lot of conditioning, getting ready for the season. So we jump rope, we did some jogging, and we went on long bike rides outside just to get ready for the season.
I was involved in a number of activities. In fact, we were fortunate to grow up in a neighborhood where we had access to a rec center, a playground. We had access to basketball courts and baseball diamonds and the swimming pools. And everybody in the neighborhood rode a bike. And so even though we were not privy to have some of the more fancy types of recreational centers that you see today with all the equipment and such, we did have a lot of opportunities to exercise, either playing organized sports, pickup games. We played a lot of pickup games and football and tackle football, touch football. We played a game called kickball, which I guess you would call it soccer today. And so as young boys and girls growing up, we had a tremendous amount of exercise options. And pretty much the one problem we would always run into would be our mothers would have to drag us in the house every night to make sure that we were in before the streetlights, because we couldn't wait to get outside to play in the mornings, and we would play until it got dark.
As an adult, yes, I have adapted my lifestyle for heart health in a capacity where I go to the gym every day. I have a saying, 2190, 21 days to make it a habit, 90 days to make it a lifestyle, no days off. And when I go to the gym, it is cardio every day, where I do the stair climber approximately an hour. That's approximately 4 miles, 8,000 steps. And in that spacing that I make sure that I drink lots of fluid, which is water. I don't drink sugary drinks because, again, sugar is the #1 killer of the human body, but people don't recognize that. The foods that I eat, again, as I repeat, that I don't eat flesh. I eat a lot of fruits and vegetables. I move all day, every day. I encourage others to do so. And the spacing of that thing, those heart health and habits help you to push forward, because as we get older, that our body changes, and sometimes we don't recognize when the change happens. And then that's when things of capacity comes, when you start talking about hypertension, you start talking about type 2 diabetes, when you start talking about high blood pressure. Those things are directly in regards to our eating habits and also our lack of exercise.
As I transitioned from a kid into young adulthood, I began to see the value of having more formal exercise using different machines other than a bike. Then I went out to the military. When I went to the military, I was fortunate enough to go to a military academy, and their exercise was an everyday thing. And so I began to pick up real good exercise habits, both in terms of strength training as well as cardiovascular. And so when I got out of the military, I kept that up, and it has kind of stuck with me today. I work out pretty much every day, at least a half an hour, and sometimes quite a bit more. And I can't remember the last time that, even though I said I love fried chicken, I can't remember the last time I ate fried chicken. Everything that we cook in our home now is either broiled or boiled or oven baked. And we really try to make sure that we have a good balance of protein and vegetables. And we try to consume, the right amount of water every day, and try to cut down on sweets, and just have a good balance of nutrition and exercise so that we maintain our a healthy lifestyle and healthy condition and wellness.
In the summertime, I walk every day. We have groups that walk, we support each other. We have accountability partners. I tried running, I tried doing running, but that wasn't me. But walking is one of the things that I like to do. 30 minutes a day, make sure I get my 150 minutes in a week. And I encourage other people to do those things. I did have an incident where I had some issues with my heart, found out that I had supraventricular tachycardia. And during that process of treatment and realizing that I need to spend more time in self-care, it's made me more diligent in taking care of myself and also encouraging others.
I have a first cousin who actually is a few months older than I am, who a few years ago was diagnosed with congestive heart failure. And, he was smaller than I was. But he was not living a healthy lifestyle. He smoked, he drank, ate poorly. And as a result of his health challenges, it forced me to better consume, more healthier foods, still have my bad things that I do eat, but for the most part, I try to adapt it, exercise more. And I'm trying to continually build that. I've been encouraged by seeing how he has changed his health condition to where he was not going to be here to now he's thriving.
It's difficult in our community, in my opinion, with the issues that we have with health and our health habits. And it's a difficult question, as loaded. So it's a couple things on the surface, right? In my opinion. So I think the first thing is access, right? So I remember growing up in my community, there was a lot of grocery stores where you can get fresh produce and the healthy things that, we need in our lives now, right? I think the other thing might be culture, right? So, up north here, Detroit, Michigan, a lot of us, a lot of our parents or grandparents migrated from down south, right? So with that, a lot of those down south soul food eating habits came with that, right? And it's food I love to this day, just can't eat as much of it, eat it in moderation. And the last thing too is kind of what I said at the beginning is just the focus, right? It's just not an emphasis. So much of our daily life is put on providing and paying the bills that sometimes our own health gets neglected and put by the wayside.
Society sells us that this is comfort food. These are the things that make you feel better, and not understanding that when we have those components of sugary drinks and sugary products, it's actually bad for us because it puts our mind, bodies in a lethargic state. And when we don't move our bodies, we can't become healthy, because in our society today, it sells us on the magic pill. The magic pill is, if you take this pill, it'll help you lose weight without exercising, which it does nothing but make you lose water weight. And when we speak to moving and exercising, that people don't want to change their habits because ignorance is bliss, but knowledge takes work.
And thinking about difficulty in changing habits, I think it's difficult for just humans in general. So when you look at it, behavior change is one of the most difficult things to do, which is why scientists like myself study how we can make changes. And I study the African-American community specifically. And so I think it's different. I think it's difficult for all folks. And so if you think about the fact it takes 21 days to create a behavior change, a positive behavior, I think it's really more about empowerment and awareness. And so, yeah, they say if you know better, you do better. But if you think about the fact that there are zoning laws that affect the African American community, when you're tired and coming home from work and trying to decide what you're making for dinner, and you have to drive past the McDonald's and the Burger King and Wendy's, it's very difficult to say, I'm gonna go home and get that spinach and saute it. And so I think that once we are empowered as a community and have the tools that we need to make the behavior changes necessary to be heart healthy, we'll be just fine.
I tell my patients, give me your family history. And they'll, and I do that so that I could be able to screen them and treat them for things that may come on down the line, like high blood pressure or diabetes, and using it as a screening tool. But I have to use that on myself. As I evaluate my own family, I know that there are some trends that go along with my genetic tree. So for example, my grandmother and my mother, they have high blood pressure. So that's another thing that resonates with me as I am trying to eat healthy and live, and have a balanced diet. I'm very, very probably more so cautious of how much salt I have in my diet, how much stress I let people put me through, because I know that high blood pressure runs in our families. Now, it's a genetic component to that. And I may not be able to do everything to quote unquote prevent it, but the things that I can do, like change my diet, make some changes in my environment, acknowledge that high blood pressure runs in my family, and make some proactive changes as to be an example for other people that may have high blood pressure in their family, be an example for my patient, but to also be an example to my family members.
So heart disease has created havoc in my family. So my father died at the age of 51 from heart disease. His mother died at the age of 54 from heart disease. My mother's mother died at the age of 57 from heart disease. So those things have made it clear to me what's important and what's not important, especially as it relates to food and how I make certain decisions.
My father had a heart attack actually while I was in medical school. And I had to come back because when he had his heart attack, he was like, he wasn't going to go through with a cardiac cath to fix his heart. He was like, okay, well, I'm just going to wait and see if it happens again. Luckily, being in medical school and having the medical knowledge that I did, I came back and said, you're not going to be a ticking time bomb. Realizing that my father was a PhD and was a graduate professor at Wayne State University was going to make the wrong decision was very concerning. And coming back from Chicago to Detroit to have that talk with him and to help him understand why it was so important, to help him understand not to be afraid, but to be more afraid of what he didn't know, as opposed to what we could know, find out, and fix.
Wow. Thank you so much. First of all, for the people behind the scenes who put that video together. And I just want to thank all of our panelists for their insightful remarks. I am so excited about getting to this panel, but I would be remiss if I did not say our panel knows some things. You all took me back in the day. I took some notes. Somebody talked about dot and edis. That just made me smile. That was somebody actually mentioned Dig'em Smacks. I'm like, what is that? I think that's awesome. Someone talked about the street lights. Do you all remember when life was so simple? That was what we worried about. It was just the street lights. We had to be home before the street lights. Somebody else talked about Belle Isle. Man, like that was a treat for us just to get out, run, and the giant slide and just have a good time. And then someone else talked about recreation. And I remember being in PAL League, couldn't play anything. I was horrid, but my parents made me play. So I just wanted to say to our panelists before we introduce them, thank you. You all took us back. So we just know that this is going to be such an amazing conversation. So let's get to it and let's meet our panel. All right, I am going to try to read this. Give me 1 minute. All right, our first panelist is Dr. Crystal Martin, and she is a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. And let me just say, Crystal, that some people have chatted me to say, Crystal is an AKA, she only has on red today because it's American Heart Dress Day. So I just wanted to recognize that, yes, she is a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha. Thank you for being here today. Next, we have James Young Jr., Dr. James Young Jr. with Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Thank you for being here today. And next, we have Dr. Lynette Jones, who is a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Thank you. All right, next we have Dr. Aaron Johnston, who's a member of Iota Phi Theta Fraternity. We appreciate you being here today. All right, we have Charles Hicks, who is a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. Thank you for joining us. We also have Dr. Kenneth Coleman, who is a member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. Thank you for being here, Doctor. We also have Julius Reedus, who is a member of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. We appreciate your participation, Julius. Thank you. We also have Dr. Cynthia McNeil, who is a member of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated. We appreciate your presence, Doctor. Thank you. And we also have Janet Banks McElrath, who is a member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. Janet, we appreciate you taking time to be with us today. And those are our panelists. And so we are going to get into our questions. But once again, panel, we thank you for being here. We really do appreciate it. So what I'm going to do is I do have some questions that I want to ask, and I will, once again, this is a conversation. So I will call on the first person and then we can just take it from there. Okay. All right. So the first question I'm going to pose to Dr. James Young. As a community, African Americans have a high propensity for heart disease, which is heavily impacted by lifestyle. So what lifestyle factors do you think contribute to this fact? You can kick us off there.
Well, I'm glad you asked that question. Thank you very much. Something that is getting a lot of attention right now is what we call social determinants of health and how they negatively affect the Black community. And some of those effects are poor access to food, quality food, poor access to healthcare, poor access to the job. And there's also a relationship between what we're now finding through COVID-19, racial disparities and racism that cause additional stress that can cause hypertension, and hypertension can lead to kidney problems, and kidney problems can lead to a variety of other problems. So although I heard Brother Coleman talk about the amount of heart disease in his family, social determinants of health can be can contribute to that, and also hereditary factors can contribute to that. So we're, as a race, we are at high risk because of the social determinants of health, and we're also at higher risk because of genetic factors as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I want to pose the same question to Dr. Cynthia. Can you chime in on that as well?
Yes, I totally agree with what has already been said, but speaking specifically, I guess, from my primary care provider stance, I hold this question into two forms. First, for the providers, I think that one of the things that we have to change in the way that we approach our patients is really translating these recommendations for the patient's lived experience. So we're talking about the lifestyle of our healthcare providers and our educators, really taking that information and making it applicable to where these people are. So we're not taking these patients where the money resides. We have to look at what they can do in their current situation to improve their health, watching their sodium counts, looking at what they have in their refrigerator or their kitchen, and what can they cut back on, portion size, different things. So kind of empowering them with the resources that they do have. Don't be mistaken. There are great disparities. However, there are some things that we can do to empower the patients to be better in the situation that they're in. From the patient standpoint, I would say we need to, and we all are patients, so we'll say that, we should be. As a primary care provider, I want to encourage that the relationship of health maintenance. So, you are supposed to be getting our physicals, getting some lab work done on a regular basis, and going to someone that's going to be held accountable for screening things early, identifying things early. So from a patient perspective, I would say that one of the lifestyle changes we need to do is really embrace health maintenance. be okay with, okay, I have to go for my physical annually, or me and my provider have a relationship where I have to see them every 6 months, every 3 months, and stay on top of that so that as a primary care provider, I can identify things early if we have a relationship. I can identify when your blood pressure is creeping up, and we can talk about things that we can do before it gets to a point where we're causing organ damage. So these are some of the things that I really think from the lifestyles of the patients and the providers that we could do a little better.
Thank you. You know, I'm actually hearing some trends here just from the two answers already about access, about racial disparity. Thank you. I never thought about that we are all patients. You're right. We're all patients and having that relationship with our provider. So I want to stay on that same question and end it out. Dr. Aaron, can you chime in on that question about, you know, we know that we have a high propensity for heart disease, which is impacted by lifestyle. What other lifestyle factors do you think contribute to this?
One that many times that we don't think about in the African American community is trauma. That's big in our, because again, when you speak to trauma, how do we usually do it? When we talk about trauma, we always talk about let's eat in that capacity, and you know what I'm saying, like eat our problems away in the source. And I heard what the doctor said before me is that when we speak to going to the doctor, especially as African American man, that a lot of my friends don't go to the doctor because they don't want to hear anything bad from jump. So their thing is, if I don't know, it won't hurt me. And then I always have to explain to people is that because you're not dying right now, don't mean it's not killing you. So in that space, you got to always think about, as I say, when you eat, that for myself, I know everyone loves Thanksgiving. That's one of the worst holidays for me because I tell folks all the time, that is a day that everybody says gluttony is okay. You're not even hungry, but you go into 5 different people's houses to get 5 different plates, and you're not even hungry anymore. And I always tell folks, when you speak about, like I always say, what is the most unhealthy day of the week? It is Sunday. Sunday is the most spiritual, the most segregated, and the most sedentary day of the week. Why? Spiritual people go to the church. Segregated because white people go to white church, black people go to black church, and so forth and so on. But sedentary in that space, when you leave church, what is the one thing everybody want to do? They want to see the pregame show at 12 and they see the postgame show at 11:30. They sit and eat chicken, fried chicken. I heard one of the panelists say that's one of his favorites. Pizza, sugary drinks, Pepsi, things of that nature. But before the season ends, whether it's basketball, football, or baseball, they done already put on 30 to 40 pounds and they don't understand why when they're sitting for literally like 8 to 10 hours a day. And that's that historic, when we talk about the social norms where people say it's okay to do that. And then we got to think about the economic impact of it. When you talk about healthy choices, people always think that if you speak about vegetarian and things of that nature, that it's like, oh, you won't get this or you won't get your proteins and things of that nature, but that's not true. It's all about God's pharmacy. God gives us everything we need to make sure our bodies are sustainable, but we always operate in understanding that it's the sugary things, or like I say, I heard the caffeine, the sodium, and even when you think about the mind, the dopamine, that's the reward sensation of the brain. When we talk about all the sugars that we take in, and when people say, how many of us, even on the panel, say, don't talk to me until I get my Pepsi. Don't talk to me until I get my coffee. That's that caffeine addiction and that sugar addiction that we don't recognize. It's those subtleties that add to our body weight and also makes us feel a certain way, and we don't understand why.
Wow. Thank you. Whoa. Okay. So we went all the way from trauma to, let me just say this. Any of you all who've been in the Baptist church, you know, when they say, oh, preacher, you stepping on my toes. Y'all just stepped all over my toes. You are right. On a Sunday, I am a sports fan, and that's what I love to do. I just love to eat. And Thanksgiving, you're right. Like, I'm gonna have 12 plates and a whole pie because why not? So thank you so much. Also, a tweetable moment is, you aren't dying right now, but it doesn't mean it doesn't kill you. You need to get a shirt with that, Dr. Aaron. All right. Let's go to our next question. And I'm going to pose this first question to Dr. Lynette Jones. And the question is, according to the American Heart Association, the prevalence of high blood pressure in African Americans is the highest in the world. High blood pressure can be hereditary, and those living with high blood pressure have a higher risk of heart disease. What suggestions do you have for someone who's living with high blood pressure or family history of high blood pressure?
Thank you. So first, I would suggest that you know your numbers. And so I think about like screenings that we do offer free screening. So many people try to run away and say, no, I don't want to know what my blood pressure is. But once you know what your numbers are, you know what your next steps need to be. You're aware and you can start making decisions. And so one of my sorors and good friends, she's in primary practice. She always says you're collecting information. You're just collecting, you're trying to find out where you are. And so once you have that awareness, I think you really need to make some decisions about how you are going to either prioritize your health or not. And so if you decide not to prioritize your health, that's a choice that you can make. I will hope that you will make a different choice. But you know, that is a choice within itself. But if you do decide that you're going to prioritize your health, then comes the decisions that you need to be purposeful in. And so if you we've talked about it a couple times. If you love fried chicken, then you're gonna have to balance that somewhere else. How often are you going to have it if that's a treat for you and you don't want to eliminate that from your diet? And so I think once you start being purposeful and make those decisions and make decisions that are in line with what your goals are, I think that you need to talk, you know, with a provider. And I think Dr. McNeil brought this up as well. We can make great teammates. A lot of people don't want to talk to a provider. They don't want to go see them. And that has to do with awareness as well. But if you are an expert in you, and I empower my patients all the time, you know you the best. You know what you're capable of. But once you team up with a primary care provider, then you have someone who is an expert in evidence-based recommendations, and that can help you make the best decisions for you or revise those decisions for you if they're not working. And so I think it's really important if you have that risk or if you're living with high blood pressure, you just have to be purposeful and follow up with what your goals and what your decisions are. Once you decide what you're going to do, you got to follow up and you got to do the things either to work towards health or work in the opposite direction, but it's a personal choice.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Janet, can you weigh in on that question as well?
Absolutely. The first point of the question talks about heredity, and we need to know our family history. You need to listen to your family. And as African Americans, we want to be in the know. So growing up, we were told, stay out of grown folks' business, right? I would be in the other room eavesdropping on conversations. I've heard stories about family members who died of the pressure, not knowing, talking about high blood pressure. Now we need to have those conversations openly and not behind closed doors. My son has high blood pressure and I dropped the ball with him. I never shared the family history with him until he was diagnosed himself. So hindsight is 2020. I could have encouraged him to live a healthy lifestyle with habits that promote heart health. I teach on healthy lifestyles and providing opportunities for the community to learn how to focus on themselves and how to identify when things aren't right. But I missed the mark with my family. I would suggest that people take family functions as opportunities to educate and learn about heart disease. Invite a family speaker to your family reunions. Now our families, we have monthly Zoom meetings. Tomorrow we're having one. Talk about the things that run in your family. You want to reverse the curse of family diseases that plague our families. Join a support group in heart disease. And that could be very empowering because you have people just like you that can share their successes and failures in that journey, and they always say sharing is caring.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. In the interest of time, we're going to go on to our next question. And I'm going to start off this question. Julius, this question is for you. In terms of reducing the risk of heart disease and maintaining overall health, how important is it to have regular primary care visits?
In terms of managing overall health, the first thing obviously that is necessary is to take ownership of your health, right? The way you live, your lifestyle. That's the first step, the most important step. The second step, as far as important, is regular primary care doctor visits, getting that annual physical, getting those age-related health screenings, whether it be blood work or that not so fun prostate exam, or the colonoscopy, which is even less fun. And with selecting a doctor, it's important that you work with someone and someone that you're comfortable with, right? Anyone, sometimes having that right doctor, using myself for example, makes me keep those visits regular, okay? And I'll tell you a quick story, really quick, as far as how important screening is. A fraternity brother of mine, no symptoms of any kind, he scheduled a colonoscopy because of what happened to Chadwick Boseman, right? Terrible, terrible tragedy. So my fraternity brother got the screening just because of that alone. During that screening, they discovered he had 4 polyps. Now, thank God they were able to remove those polyps before they became cancerous. But if not for that screening, there's really no telling the direction his health could have went.
Wow, thank you. That's powerful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Dr. James, can you also weigh in on that question about the importance of regular primary care visits?
Sure. Regular primary care visits are very, very important. And I like to add that we as Black folk, especially men, we're very reluctant to engage with the healthcare system in general and primary care in particular. And so one of the things that we have found through some of our research is that for those African American brothers and sisters who are engaged with a primary care team and or a primary care physician, they are more likely to participate in their health care more regularly and to contribute to either care planning and or treatment options. The term that you're going to be hearing more and more about is patient-centered care and or patient-centered medical homes. And those are practices and physicians who go through a process of engagement with all communities, particularly multicultural communities, and they are also skilled in delivering culturally competent care. And so this is something, in addition to the disparities that you're hearing about now, you'll be hearing about as well. And that is patient-centered care, patient-centered medical homes, and methods that are being created to engage physicians and practices that are culturally competent. And all of those things will hopefully, based on all the studies that have been done, will improve trust in the healthcare system, engagement in the healthcare system, and better clinical outcomes for all people, particularly people of color.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really interested in hearing more about the cultural competent care. So I'm sure we will all be looking out to receive more information about that. That's really important. And I heard a couple people talk about the relationship and how important it is to have that relationship. My daughter's away in college, and it was really, we really had to research so that for the 4 years, she was building a relationship with someone. So thank you, all of you, for talking about the importance of that. The next question, I am going to start with Dr. Crystal. And the question is, in terms of African-American culture and lifestyle, what's different for families now versus the previous generation in terms of healthy eating and exercise? I heard you mention .net, as I know it was you. So if you answer that question.
All of that. No problem. Well, I think the biggest thing, and anybody who's on this call who knows me, my patients know this, I'm big on diet. I would rather adjust diets and take people off medications, add medications. As a nephrologist, I'm seeing hypertensive kidney disease, diabetic kidney disease when they're already progressed and causing organ damage. And if it's happening in the kidney, it's happening in the body. So for me, when I talk to them about lifestyle changes, and they say, well, my mother used to add salt to everything and nothing, and they didn't have high blood pressure till later. They didn't have these problems. The problem is that back then they actually went to the Eastern market, got the fresh meat. It wasn't embedded in sodium to keep it on the shelves for 2 to 3 weeks, up to a month, whereas they used to eat it in 2 or 3 days. So there's so many foods now that are sodium. And as Blacks, we are salt retainers genetically. So we're retaining all that salt, which is making us hold on to water, which is causing high blood pressure. Foods are affecting our bodies disproportionately more than it is for our counterparts and the white society, etc. And so that's why we're getting more of these end-stage diseases, and it's affecting us even more. So we talk about our diet, we talk about our lifestyles. We're not because it's a lot different. Back in the day, a lot of people talk about playing outside. We had our own communities, Black communities, where we all live. Now everybody's spread out. So mothers and fathers are driving half an hour, 45 minutes away instead of all living in the same area, working in the same area so we can get home to our kids. It used to take a village to raise a family. It was all over. Everybody knew each other. We don't have that. So our kids can't play outside. So not only are we not getting the same exercise we used to, we're not in that family structures. We're feeling comfortable when we go back. So that's what somebody talked about, the stress that we felt from the outside is even more so because a lot of our kids are not in predominantly Black communities, which they feel like they're among family members. They're feeling the stress. I'm seeing because of the diets, more hypertension and kidney disease at younger ages because we are what we eat. And the question is, do we eat to live or do we live to eat? And we're teaching our kids to live to eat instead of eating to live, which sometimes we have to adjust the diet. When you start doing that at young ages, these kids will not be developing the diseases that we were getting in the 60s, they're developing in the 20s. So I think when you talk about change in lifestyle and the affect our children and what's different from before is we're not doing the homemade foods. Mothers are busy, they're at work, there's more mothers not at work than at home now. So we're not preparing foods, we're not getting fresh foods. So a lot of people are eating fast foods more often, canned vegetables, canned soups. Again, something you can make quickly because you're getting home late. We have to get back to preparing our foods ahead of time, maybe on a Sunday for 2 or 3 days. We have to try to teach our kids about healthy eating, avoiding the salt, eating more of the proteins and carbs, healthy proteins, proteins and vegetables, staying away from the unhealthy sugary drinks, as was been mentioned on multiple occasions, and exercise, getting out. And we have to be an example to our kids. There's video games instead of like our parents used to say, get out my house, go play till the street lights come on. I used to tell my patients, use your imagination. If you're not in the community, get outside, use your imagination and do something. Get more dogs so they have somebody to play with. If they're not in an environment where they're not able to get out, they can get into the backyard. But we have to start getting our kids to find the time, get out and not sit in front of the TV or a video game, because that's how obesity is running rampant in our young community as well.
Thank you. Dr. Ken, I want to pose the same question with you, especially because of your transparency. Thank you for sharing with us your family history. So what do you see that's different from back in the day to now? And what are some things that we can do to improve what we see happening?
I think a lot of us are just based on what Dr. Martin was talking about. You have it. I grew up in a household where everything was made from scratch, which requires time and patience. That's just not our generation of folks. So patience is not something that's relevant. Something that Dr. Johnson also talked about was trauma and its impact on our community, and how do you manage that from day to day, and what role does food play in that process. So I think, it's good that folks have increased their level of knowledge about things, but knowledge alone doesn't change behavior. So until we get to the point where we get folks uncomfortable, that's when behavior is going to change. And I think one of the things that will be beneficial compared to the past to now is that growing up, you were always taught to follow directions and not ask questions. I think we need to be comfortable with young people asking questions of us today, so you can explain things in a more concrete way as it relates to their health and why certain things are important to do. So it's not just important to just tell them to do it, but it's also important to explain why it's necessary to do it that way, especially for someone like me who has a history of heart disease in your family. I made it clear to my kids how they need to function and why they need to function that way and why it's important. So it's not important just to look healthy, but it's also important to eat healthy so that you physically are. So when you are talking to your doctor, you understand the language that they're presenting to you. I mean, the good thing about technology is giving you information. So even if a doctor is explaining something you don't understand, you can always Google it. So there's always answers readily available. So even if they're not willing to explain it to you in a level of detail that you need, or you're too embarrassed to ask for that level of detail, information still is available to you. So I think from that standpoint, we need to do a better job of helping our kids take advantage of technology from that standpoint, and hopefully reduce the level of sedentary lifestyle that most young people have as it relates to the video games, and put time limits on some of those items as it relates, or make it more interactive. as it relates to their own personal health.
I appreciate that. Thank you. You know, this has come up again and again. We talk about this trauma. I know we talk about workplace trauma a lot, but you're right. It'll be very interesting, and some of you may already do this, where there are some workshops out there to just talk about trauma. Like, this is really, really important to talk about, because you're right, it does lead to eating, it leads to unhealthy behavior, it leads to low self-esteem and things like that. So thanks for bringing that up today, because that is really, really important as well. All right, our next question is, I'm going to kick it off to Charles. We haven't heard from you yet. What conversation should African-American families be having, especially their children, to help improve the heart health of the next generation? What should that conversation look like, sound like?
Well, I think many of the points that were stated earlier on tied to this question. I mean, we need to focus on teaching our children the right things to eat, the right things to drink, the amount of activity they should have, because that will help foster good habits or natural habits going forward, as if they're introduced early. As we're seeing with the COVID, I mean, we all have been more sedentary in front of screens more. So it's even more reason why we have to get all of us more active and involved in being proactively handling our heart health.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I also want to just toss the same question to Dr. Crystal, if you could, and I'll repeat the question. What conversations should we be having with our families, especially our children, to help improve the heart health of the next generation? What needs to be included in that conversation?
Again, diet is very important. Exercise, getting out with them, making it a family activity, I think, because when they see you do it, then they'll do it. And talking about why it's important, talking about our family histories. I always encourage my patients, especially before COVID, to bring their kids in. I have them bring their little kids in at 2, 3, 4, and one, to be a mentor, right? To be like that play auntie that's the doctor. So I'm encouraging them to go on to be a doctor potentially. I have them push on the legs to look for swelling in the legs, and I tell them to tell their parent, no salt, because a lot of that is related to salt when people develop edema. But you incorporate the whole family in health care, and that's the way that they get their education. That's how they become engaged and involved. And when they become involved and they see that it's important to you, it's important to them. And when they see that you are making it a priority in your life, then they say, hey, I have to make that priority in my life. My kids used to go to their during lunchtime, they go to their friends, and their friends used to have their parents pack them food and have a salt packet in it. And I concentrate on salt that I'm talking to. And everybody knows, like I said, salt is the killer. When we talk about sugar, salt and sugar to me, but again, being a nephrologist, salt is even higher killer to me than the sugar, but they're both terrible for us. But the salt is so important. They tell their friends, please don't eat that. What are your parents doing, trying to kill you? That white salt is the devil. Throw it out the window. Let's know about our other herbs and okay? And then try to get to a low sodium diet that can still taste good, and teach them about the importance of that, and teach your kids how to spread that message.
Dr. Crystal, you have little soldiers at home, I can tell.
I have soldiers.
Little health soldiers. All right, I just want
they're
one
black
more
militants and they're health militants.
I love it. Dr. Lynette, quickly, I also want to know, if you were having this conversation with your family, special children, what is that one thing, like the one thing that you would tell them?
So I agree both with what Charles and Crystal said already, especially about within the context of the family. What I would add to it is just encouragement. I have 2 little girls, and I try to stress the importance of balancing everything. I have a high school junior, and she has, college applications and, things to do online now. And so I just talked with her about balance. If you are in the middle of the day, you can't get out, let's work out at lunchtime. Let's go for a walk, trying to make sure that we adapt to what's happening. So with COVID, I try to empower my patients as well. Black people are resilient. We are awesome. We have come through so much and been successful so far. And now we're learning that, okay, we need to adjust our diet and our exercise behaviors, and those things can be done. So I think just talking about the importance of balance, incorporating daily exercises and small changes, that's what I do with my girls, and that's what I offer to my patients as well.
Thank you. We appreciate that. We're going to go on to our next question because I know our audience also has some questions for you all. I have just a couple more. And we're going to start with Dr. Aaron.
Okay.
Dr. Aaron, how has the recent COVID pandemic increased the need for heart health conversations in the African-American community?
Due to the pandemic, it has put us in a place of poor eating. I mean, we was already there, but now we just sit in front of the computer all day, every day, where it's changed, like I say, it has changed our whole dynamic of how we do everything, from education to healthcare, the whole nine, to where we live in a society where we're communal beings, but we in a society now to say is don't touch. So in that spacing that when we sit at home, when you're sitting at home, many times that you're eating and you eat wrong food, you're sedentary, which actually leads to different aspects of depression, anxiety, and the pandemic itself has put everybody in fear. So when you talk about fear itself, it releases negative hormone within the body that actually make other things happen. And you in that space of, well, what do I do? How do I do it? And again, when we speak to even going to see your healthcare physician is one where they scared themselves. So it's best to, like they say, it's better to be a good example than have great advice. And even for those persons that I know personally, and when it comes to heart health, when it comes to COVID-19, when it comes to all these different components that impact our health directly, that sometimes we have to be, like I say, in the front line, because even for my mother, when I took my mother to the doctor and they were telling her to change her diet, and so forth and so on, my mother's response was, what's she gonna tell me? She fatter than me.
Oh no.
So, and in that space, we have to be, like you say, we have to pass the eyeball test. If as those persons who given the information, but it said it's great to have the advice, but if we don't make it applicable to ourselves, they're gonna say we just blowing hot air. So it's that space in, we have to be on the front line. And when we talk about heart health, when we talk about diet and exercise, they need to look at us and say, he passed or she passed the eyeball test before we can tell them anything. Because again, it's in that spacing of, when you look at it holistically, do a billionaire go to a broke person how to make money? Not at all. So we got to pass the eyeball test.
Ooh, all right, Aaron. I hear you. Okay. You get us together.
I'm just speaking, and I'm speaking the truth. My truth anyway. That's how I see it.
We said it was going to be a conversation. This is real talk.
Yes,
we all family here. All right. Dr. Cynthia, can you also talk to us about that? And let me just restate the question. With the COVID pandemic, the increased need for heart health conversations in the African American community is evident. But can you talk about maybe some of your experiences, what you're hearing, or things of that nature?
So I think the impact that COVID has had is twofold. The first thing is that for those of us who have been working in the trenches with those that have been despaired all of this time, for some reason, COVID has brought this back to the light. Like, some people are surprised that there are despaired populations that are further despaired by the COVID pandemic. And so it has brought the conversation of disparities kind of back to the forefront. So hopefully now with this platform that we can get some tangible things done and some real solutions to policies and different things to assist these communities that have been despaired for decades, but the pandemic has further heightened the disparity. The other thing it does is I think the pandemic has really allowed us to be blanketly traumatized. So no matter what financial status you have, no matter where you come from, COVID has affected each and every one of our lives, either directly or indirectly. COVID has caused social isolation, anxiety, depression, fear, loss. So we all have now the opportunity to bring mental health stigma to the conversation now, and the correlation between mental health and physical health, and then bringing it back to heart health, acknowledging that it's some mental health issues that individuals have struggled with all of their lives that have, as an adult, has led to some decisions that have impacted their health care or their self-care, leading to substance abuse, overeating, comfort food, like someone said before, kind of looking at some of the impact that mental health has on the physical health. And then you look at those impact of, like I said, substance abuse and maybe sedentary lifestyle, those kind of things, feeling depressed and that type of thing, that further puts you at risk for high blood pressure and heart disease. So now that we are in this COVID, I've seen more mental health hotlines. We are talking about mental health more. We acknowledge that there's trauma all over the place. So now we can really talk about the correlation between mental health and physical health, and how we, and I'm a big person about interdisciplinary practice, how we need to have mental health and physical health working hand in hand for some individuals. Because if you don't address some of the mental health issues that individuals have, you will not get them to achieve any physical health goals that you may want them to have. And trust me, I know. People have come into my office, I tell them, okay, well, now you have diabetes, and they have so much going on in their life, just stress of trying to live and trying to make it, making life decisions on whether they're gonna buy food or get gas to get to work. And you add this other layer of poor health, or it's a health issue that needs to be addressed, and it just overwhelms individuals. Even when they go into your office and you say, okay, I need you to cut back on salt or sodium in your diet, if you don't acknowledge that based off of their socioeconomic status and their lived experience, that they may not, unless you're putting money into their account, they're doing the best that they can for some people. They don't have access to grocery stores or fresh fruits and vegetables. Those things don't last long. But what they do have is everything that you told them not to eat. Canned foods, pasta, bread. You can make a pot of spaghetti that'll feed your family for the whole week. And you're telling them now you need to stop eating that, and then you let them walk out of your office. What you have done is really put them in a position where they feel defeated before they even got to the part where what they could do to even make a stepwise approach to meeting these guidelines. So again, I've worked in places where we've had a mental health provider and myself as a physical health provider. And I would tell you, more cases than not, I had to help them deal with whatever their mental or social needs were before I could get them to kind of hear what I was saying about what I needed them to do for their physical health. And because I am a member of the disparate population, I meet them where they are. So when COVID hits and I know that, jobs are lost and finances are tight, I'm asking you, well, tell me what's in your refrigerator. Tell me what you have for breakfast. Okay, you had 6 pieces of bacon. Well, could you cut down to at least 2 pieces of bacon? Let's make some realistic goals so that we're just not making these goals that are not attainable and you giving up and you feeling discouraged. So again, I think that COVID has done 2 things. Again, brought disparities back into the limelight in terms of certain societies or cultures or communities that are suffering disproportionately. But it also has given us an opportunity to bring mental health and physical health into the conversation and dispel some of the mental health stigma and really start to look at holistic care of our people and our patients.
Thank you. Wow. Doctor, you said a mouthful. I'm taking notes. Like, okay, I'm just going to call you later. That's what's your contact information. You said a lot. Wow. Thank you. And my phone is blowing up because we're getting questions in from our audience. So I'm excited about that. However, I do have just one last thing. And I know some of our panelists did want to speak to this. And I'm going to ask you if you could just give us a 30-second soundbite to talk about some of your organization's local health programming, especially those related to heart health. So I'm going to call the people that I actually have jotted down, but if you also want to chime in, please just let me know. First, Charles, Dr. Charles, if you can talk to us about the program.
So my dean always taught us to stay ready. You don't have to get ready. So we have our health and wellness subcommittee for our chapter where we teach brothers. We actually physically had them learn how to conduct CPR. We've purchased defibrillators and taught them how to use those so that we are ready in case something is required. But more importantly, we have conversation about, proper, health habits and tips. So we have brothers who are doctors come in and educate us and have open and frank conversations, because many brothers, for whatever reason, have a fear of going to the doctor. But when they have conversation and hear brothers who are actually going through ailments, they potentially may change some habits.
Wow, thank you. Thank you for your service. We appreciate it. Julius, would you like to share with us what your organization is doing around, just your local health programming?
Yeah, really quick. What we try to do is focus on programming and activities we believe our members and our community will enjoy. So we organize several local bike rides during the spring and summer called the Blue and White Ride Outs. It's great cardio. It's great fun. Doesn't take a lot to organize. And we pick a different bike route every time. And the other thing that we do when you can't ride bikes is, we've got a lot of athletes in our chapter, right? Some competitive guys. Marlon, you know that. A lot of athletes, competitive guys. So we get out there on the basketball court, and no one's planning to go to the NBA. We just want to get some good cardio and not get hurt. And those things, the more fun you can make it, I think the better attendance you'll get and the more impact it'll have.
Thank you. And Julius, yes, my husband is a member of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. I need y'all to let him win, please. Okay, thank you. Janet, can you talk to us about what your wonderful organization is doing around health programming?
Absolutely. We have a program called Zetas Have Heart, and that's designed to increase awareness about heart health, heart disease, supporting our membership and the community. And we want our membership to be healthy, and they focus on self-care. We spend so much time as the Divine Nine taking care of others, and we often get lost and we don't take care of ourselves. So we share our platform for opportunities to get fit and to become active. Right now, we are in the midst of the Fit and Finer Challenge, which began on the 23rd. And you just on Facebook is blowing up with everybody doing all different things to improve their health. One more thing, we have a toolkit that's offers suggestions for the sorors to implement in their chapters in the community in providing education and engaging activities. We also have become partnered with Girl Trek, and we are the first of the Divine Nine to be partnered with Girl Trek, and we're really excited about that. And we have Z-Hope, which means Zetas helping other people excel. So we got a lot going on.
You got a lot. That's awesome. Thank you. Dr. Ken, what are the Omegas doing?
We have a few different programs that we're running. We have a Heart Health Talk that we have during our Achievement Week, which is normally the week of November 17th, which is when we were founded. We also have our Charge Drew blood drive that we do through all our chapters to increase the number of African Americans who donate. We have a 5K in the cut run that takes place in August each year to get folks moving and active. In the last 4 years, we started what we called our mental health talks. That has transitioned into a variety of different topics. One of the things, the reason we started that was to try to get, specifically African American men to go to the doctor or also seek help if you have a mental health issue. So we're trying to do it on both ends, on the mental health side as well as the physical health side.
Thank you. And Dr. Cynthia?
Yes. So, of course, nationally, we're doing a lot as far as physical fitness. We have the swim competition and a focus on getting the family out and swimming and using that as a way to do physical activity. But locally, in partnership with the Rho Sigma Foundation in Detroit, I really enjoy the fact that they've actually looked at the psychosocial and cultural norms of why women that are the caregivers of a nation are dying earlier than the people that they're caring for. So now we're going to be really having an intimate conversation this Sunday, talking about why is it that we are dying after we have spent our lifetime in these roles that are caring for other people, and really kind of look at normalizing the primary care relationship, normalizing self-care more than just your hair and nails. We're talking about making time to take care of yourself and modeling that behavior to our children and our generation so they can see us. They spend so much time taking other people to the doctor or taking other people to the clinic or taking other people to the nurse practitioner that they don't even have the time to really take care of themselves until it's too late or something has really made them sit down. So now we're going to be looking at the psychosocial and cultural norms and how we can incorporate health maintenance into our daily lives.
Thank you. And is there anyone else on the panel before we take our first question from the audience that wanted to? Okay, Dr. Lynette.
Yes. So I'll just say very quickly, right now we have a program called Destination Healthy You, and it's all virtual. There is nutrition and cooking demonstrations. There is a Go Red Challenge to increase exercise and really just focusing on health and improving health during this time. But I also want to say we have programs that address all social determinants of health that we talked about today. So financial power in the Black community, how to empower our students. And so young boys and girls are comfortable in conversations that they need to have about health, about literacy and numeracy. And so these things are addressed at a younger age. And so when we talk about the total person, we have programs that address each one of those points.
Thank you. And Dr. James?
Yes, Alpha Phi Alpha just brought on a physician who is going to be coordinating all of the health and wellness programs for all the chapters around the country. My chapter, Iota Rho Lambda, we have periodic bike rides, and we just are getting ready to start our second Brothers Challenge, where we are going to set goals and competitive challenges for the brothers in the chapter and include proper consumption of water and exercise, aerobic, strength training, and so on. And this is a competitive challenge among all the brothers in the chapter.
Thank you. And Dr. Crystal?
Yeah, so Alpha Kappa Alpha, of course. We have been participating in Angels Red, American Health Association. We have been, we have a 28 days, 28 ways initiative. So we have tried to sharing recipes and healthy eating. Motivational Mondays, we're inspiring others. And we have also participated in previous Walks for Cancer. We had an event last year where we were, again, encouraging caregivers, increasing the knowledge of how to be healthy, participating in exercise. And most recently, we've been concentrating on mental health, as Dr. Cynthia talked about. So we are participating as all of our Divine Nine in many ways of keeping the Black community healthy.
Thank you. Last but certainly not least, Dr. Aaron.
With the Iota Heart Health, we're doing for our chapter is like, because again, we live such sedentary lifestyles, and that spacing of, we want to do it through fun, because for people of color, we love to line dance. So we in that spacing where we always doing some form of line dancing, to where we help people, like I say, the more you move, you don't understand how many calories you burn when you start doing those line dances. But you're having fun in the same space, because every doctor on here can identify that our bodies move with rhythm. And like I say, our heart has rhythm, our bodies give vibration, our bodies are energy. So in that spacing, when it's like a computer, garbage in, garbage out. So all what we program in us gonna come out of us. So it's always in that spacing of, like I heard Dr. McNeil speak to, when you're speaking to the ladies, one thing that I thought about was, of course, the ladies are dying faster because ladies are nurturers. So y'all nurture your own pain. So even when you're in pain, you put yourself on the back burner to make sure others are better, because that's what y'all do. Even for us men, we need you guys to be our backbone, because sometimes we spineless. So we love you guys. I just want to tell you, we love all the ladies. Appreciate you. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Dr. Aaron, you need a podcast. All right, well, listen, let's get into it. We have some questions from our audience, and I don't see a chat feature, so if we could, so we won't talk over one another, if you could just raise your hand if you want to answer this question, that would be great. So the first question is, how can emerging technology like wearable devices be used to support heart health?
Anybody? I'll take it.
Oh. Dr. Janet?
Well, I was going to say using that technology is very important. I did not find out that I had a heart condition if it had not been for my Apple Watch. And I would check my Apple Watch when I would walk, going out, and I would come home and my heart would race a little bit. I'd look at it and I'm like, oh, my heart rate is 200. What is this about? It would happen more frequently. When I went to the doctor and they looked at the trends and that I was placed on a monitor, I was able to find out that there was an underlying condition that I knew nothing about. So technology, it does have a place in helping to assess and to be able to know what you're doing, walking, knowing how many steps you had. So technology is important.
Thank you. Dr. Aaron, you wanted to weigh in as well?
Oh yeah, I was gonna say in the same space where Dr. Janet just stated, it's about using your technology in the steps of counting your steps, like 10,000 steps a day. You should take at least 10,000 steps a day. That's equivalent to 5 miles, dealing with your water intake. And also it helps you to read labels, because even for myself, that a lot of people in the African-American community don't know how to read measurements. And that's sad, because even when they talk about, a lot of people I know take them Red Bulls, and them Red Bulls, they be like, oh, it's only 34 grams of sugar. And I'm like, do you know 28 grams is an ounce? Are you serious? But they think 34 is low on a 100-point scale. So they automatically don't understand that what they're taking in is actually killing them. So in that space of using the technology to count your calories, understand how to cook, and also water intake and how many steps you take daily. Take at least 10,000. If you're not, run in place.
Can someone, technology is, I love technology and it's my background, yes. But what happens when people can't not afford these Apple Watches? Like, what else? Is there any other technology that one could use if it's not, this type of wearable technology? That's just my own question. So,
well, a Fitbit always helps too.
Okay.
And apps, downloadable apps.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
MyFitnessPal. I'm sorry. Yeah, there's so many free things that you don't necessarily need an iPhone or Fitbit or anything like that. You can actually get you can enter your weight, what you're trying to achieve right through a program on the internet. It'll print it out for you. You can follow that to a T. So never has it been to this point where the access to these programs is this low cost and accessible.
True. I know I use MyFitnessPal, but you have to be honest. Like, I don't log half the food, so it's not gonna work. I guess I'm saying if you use it, then don't cheat. All right, we had another question. During my annual primary care visit, what assessments or screenings should I be requesting or expecting to understand my heart health? Who would like to take that one?
So go ahead, Dr. Crystal.
Dr. Crystal, then Dr. Cynthia.
Okay. Well, I was going to talk about the Dr. Lynette said. First, most importantly, is know your numbers. So anything for hypertension, most people, they say greater than 140/90 and the newer concerns. But I say as Black people, because we're more susceptible to hypertension, to the diagnosis of hypertension, diabetes, but with hypertension, those numbers in regards to our risk for heart disease, stroke, and kidney disease, knowing what our numbers should be. There's something that we call physician inertia. And what it is a lot of times they'll see their doctors, their blood pressure is 150/90s, and the doctor's like, okay, see you later. I have patients that I ask, what was your blood pressure last time you saw your doctor? I don't know. And I always tell them what the blood pressure I get is, but a lot of times they see the doctor and they don't even ask. The doctor gets the blood pressure, or the medical assistant writes it in the chart. The doctor says, oh, okay, blood pressure's okay, and they leave. Know your numbers. Ask what your numbers are. When you get your labs back, your doctor goes to pay to get your blood work, ask for a copy. And then you pay these doctors. So you get a copy of those lab works and say, hey, tell me, what's this L, which means low? What's this H, that means high? If you're 130, I always say, especially as a Black person, most of the time, again, I'm seeing patients when they already have kidney disease or problems, 130s over 80s, or less should be their goal, especially if they're diabetic. And a lot of those patients, we may aim for blood pressure of 120 over 70 to 80s. And I'm saying this because a lot of our community does not know our numbers, and we don't ask. As long as they're not changing medication. We're talking about physician inertia. I tell my patients, ask your doctor, hey, my kidney doctor said my blood pressure needs to be at least less than 130/80. So why have you not changed my medications if you're telling me my blood pressure is 150/90 right now? And you weren't even gonna tell me. So know your numbers, ask questions, you pay these doctors. If they're not gonna answer your questions when you ask them, then ask them to refer you to someone who will, because I get patients with kidney disease when it's too late for me to make a difference, because they didn't turn around and refer them to a nephrologist when their kidney function was at 60%, 50%, 30%. But instead I got them when it's 15% just to start dialysis.
Thank you. Dr. Cynthia, did you want to add?
So back to the question about technology, basic things. Most of us have a cell phone. So I tell my diabetic patients, as you check your numbers, and if you forget bring your meter to the meeting that we have, text it to yourself. It gives you a timestamp. It gives you the value. The same thing for those individuals that I have them checking their blood pressures at home. If you have a blood pressure kit at home, bring that data with you. Text that information to yourself when you check your blood pressure. It gives you a time and date stamp so that, you know, when you come in the clinic, I only get a snapshot of that particular day. And so I'm asking you, what have your blood pressures been at home? What have your blood sugars been at home? So you may not be able to afford an Apple Watch or that kind of thing, but, you know, I go old school, bring me a journal, bring me something and show me what you're doing at home so that I can make an informed decision holistically about what's going on. The other thing is there are evidence-based guidelines that guide how we initially screen everybody based off your race and your age. You know, you're 50, you get a colonoscopy, mammogram at this age. And so we have some guidelines that guide our practice. But when you truly disclose, like your family history, your behaviors at home, your risk factors, that adds different layers and puts some different bees in our bonnet to say, okay, we're going to do the basic things, but because this person has hypertension, high blood pressure, and they smoke, and I'm also going to do some additional things. And it is on the primary care provider to get you referred in a timely fashion to the specialist if needed. So that's why it's important to have that consistent primary care relationship, because as things start to decline or increase or whatever in your lab value, you need someone to hold everyone accountable, get you to the resources that you need to get to. So using evidence-based practice and you being the captain of your healthcare. I don't mind my patients, you know, having some questions or having looked up some things. Just remember, what you read and what you hear is not always factual. That's why it's important to have a healthcare provider on your team that you can talk to about your concerns, the things that you're hearing, that they can keep up with your values, and we can work together for your health.
Thank you. And we are nearing time, but I want to get these two last audience questions in. I want to honor what they want to know. So I'm going to ask at least one person to answer it. And if you could just, you know, keep it really brief, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. The question is, how do you ensure you're getting proper treatment when the medical professional says it's not heart related? How can you better advocate for yourself? Who would like to answer that question? Dr. Lynette, I think I see you shaking your head.
Can you repeat that question? I just want to make sure I heard it right.
Yep. How do you ensure you're getting proper treatment when the medical professional says it's not heart related? How can you better advocate for yourself?
So I think one of the things that I talked about earlier is that you know you. And so feeling empowered when you're in the office, if you feel like you are not getting the answers that you need or you're uncomfortable, I think Dr. Crystal mentioned earlier, you could go see another provider. And I tell my research participants that and my patients that as well, if you're not getting the answers or not having a conversation that you're comfortable with or that you're getting the information that you need, then that's not the provider for you. I also think that being aware, I think Mr. Julius earlier talked about being able to search on the internet. Now the internet will steer you wrong. So it's important to have a conversation with a provider. But I encourage, when I was still practicing, my patients to bring in information all the time, because at that time it's a conversation. You're learning, you're taking that, I found this information, is this related to me? And then I can help guide that conversation. So reading, being prepared, and writing down the questions that you want to know before you get to your appointment. And like I said, if you are not getting the answers or having a conversation that you're comfortable with, or that you walk away feeling like, okay, this is the plan that's fit just for me, then you need to find a new provider.
Thank you, Dr. Lynette. And this is the very last question. How does intermittent fasting impact heart health?
So I'll take that. So there are a lot of different diets and approaches out there that try to help you use your metabolism with, you know, to work with your metabolism to kind of help you curb your appetite. These things are great components of health, but doesn't take the place of physical activity, having your checkups and different things like that. So intermittent fasting is where you eat at a certain period of time, you know, during the day based off your schedule, and you don't eat anymore for a period of time. Again, that may work for some people. And as long as the time that you're eating healthy and you're keeping up with your caloric needs, that would be fine. However, it's not in silo. Diet alone does not achieve the goals that we're really looking for. It really is an overall healthy lifestyle of diet and exercise. Beware of fad diets and these juices and the magic potions and that type of thing. Because one of the major things that I find is sustainability. So you really want to make lifestyle changes. I mean, intermittent fasting and things like that are okay, but are you going to be sustaining this behavior for your life? Like, how are you going to incorporate consistent longevity with your healthy lifestyle? So it's not a one-stop shop. You have to really address these disparities multifaceted.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And we are at time. I mean, it's like we're just sitting around the table. That time went really, really fast. So I just want to say a heartfelt thank you to our panelists. And if no one has told you today, you are special, you matter. We appreciate what you do, not just on this panel, but I can tell you all are just passionate about what you do. So we thank you. We thank you for, just your work and your careers, but also in your organizations as well. With that, we have another poll that you're going to see up on the screen. And we're going to ask you to take about 60 seconds, about a minute or so, to answer this poll. While you're answering the poll, I just want to make sure, we mentioned at the top of this webinar that there was the AHA donation link. Each organization has a link on the HeartTalk Detroit donation page. 100% of the proceeds will go to that or to AAH on behalf of that team. So make sure you head over there and donate. All right. Thank you. So now we're getting to the part where, we're having it's our closing remarks. We want to thank our community partners. So once again, we thank the panelists. I want to thank everyone who took time out of their busy schedules today. We know there's a thing called Zoom fatigue, but you decided to spend another hour and a half to 2 hours with us. We do not take it for granted. We hope that you got what you were looking for, that, we were able to answer your questions. So we just thank you once again for doing that. We thank you for, I was writing down earlier when we were just talking about everything, all the great advice. We will all be Belle Isle ready this summer. We're going to be ready. Meet me at Belle Isle, shed number 9. We're going to have a family, I'm just playing. We'll have a family reunion. But once again, so thank you to our community partners. There are so many to name. So you will see them up on our screen. And then lastly, I would love for you to invite you to our next 2 webinars. The other events, the first takes place February 12th. And we'll be talking about food insecurity. That's going to be moderated by Leslie Andrews. And then lastly, on February 19th, healthy eating and childhood obesity, which will be moderated by Dr. Tara Scott. So once again, we thank you. We appreciate you. Thank you for attending this. And we hope to see you on the 12th. Oh, also, my apologies. Many members have been asking about the organizations have all these awesome programs. So we'll make sure we follow up with our panelists and we will get a list and get that out to everyone. All right. And the video will be the D9 video will be rebroadcast on Facebook, and we'll get you more information on that. So our panelists, you will be stars all over the world. All right, everybody. Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.